We're going to spend today's Best of Oklahoma Gardening talking about pecans. Senior agriculturalist Becky Carroll has tips on pecan harvesting and storage. Dick Hoffman demonstrates bark grafting of pecan trees. Extension entomologist Jackie Lee has a simple and effective way to manage pecan weevils. And we return to Hoffman Pecan Farm to see how pecans are processed. Oklahoma Gardening is a production of the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the land grant mission of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University, dedicated to improving the quality of life of the citizens of Oklahoma through research-based information. Underwriting assistance is provided by TLC, Oklahoma's leading garden center, Southwood Landscape and Nursery, Tulsa's source for great gardens, and the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping to keep Oklahoma green and growing.
It is harvest time at the Cimarron Research Station. Joining us is Becky Carroll, Extension Assistant in Fruit and Nut Crops. We could hear a lot of activity here at the research station.
We have some propane cannons going off, and then there's a bird guard. It's kind of a scare sound to keep the crows and other critters away. So,
because this is the time of year when the shucks are opening, a lot of the birds will come in and try to steal our harvest.
Right, and one crow or one squirrel, they can take about a pound of nuts per day. Mm-hmm. So if you consider the expense of a pound of pecans, that's pretty expensive if you let them get too much. And they can take your entire crop if you're not careful. So the sooner we can get them off the tree and into our building, into our house, the better off we have having a good crop that year.
So I want to look at what homeowners need to do to harvest their crop. And I think the first step is, when do we need to start harvesting?
Right. Pecans ripen, they start in October. And depending on the varieties, it can be into November or even into December whenever they ripen. So you need to pick a variety that's going to be suitable for your area. Mm-hmm. So if it's still closed and we get a hard freeze, they may not open.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that we have an early ripening fruit in the northern parts of the state. Mm-hmm. The southern areas can be a little bit later, but we want to have something that's going to open early so they don't get frozen in the shuck. But anytime these sutures on the shuck start to split, that means the pecan is ripe and ready to be harvested. So whenever you first see these little sutures starting to split open, you can get out there and start getting them out of the tree and harvesting, because they'll just pull right out of there. You can see where that little tissue has been holding the nut in place, and now it's no longer getting anything from that tree anymore. So it's ripe and ready to be harvested.
And so obviously we can wait for them to fall to the ground, but that gives a lot of opportunity for other critters to gather up.
A lot of people have to depend on the wind to knock them out of the trees, and in Oklahoma that's not a problem a lot of the time. But the sooner we can get them inside, the better chance we have having a good crop, because the crows, blue jays, squirrels, turkeys, deer, everything else likes pecans too. So
and so you have a really simple tool to whack those seeds down, and I'm going to step back and let you demonstrate.
This is a frailing pole, and you can see up in the tree we have most of these shucks are open, so I'm going to get in here and just try to knock them down. And we've put a tarp on the ground to see if we can get them to land where we want them to. It's not going to happen for all of them, but if we can get some of them out on the tarp, that would be helpful.
Well, Becky, you've dropped quite a few pecans down here, and I could see some of them are still in their husks. And my guess, this one's not really opened. Is there a problem with this?
This one may have some type of insect damage or other damage. It may just be not a quality pecan. And there's a few other ones that I found. I think this one had early insect damage and it's not going to open. But a lot of the time, any type of disease or insect damage on the shuck is going to prevent them from opening at the proper time. So if you have something like this, you can try to open them. Like this one was, you can just pull them out if they're loose. But like this one, it's tight and it's not going to open, so it's probably not good.
We'd just discard those.
And the thing about pecans, all of this liquid in the shuck, the more you touch it, the more it stains your fingers.
Okay.
So you can tell pecan people because they have brown fingers at this time of year.
And that's just full of moisture, and that's the
Right.
reason we don't want to leave this in here to
Right.
dry. We want to go ahead and pull those out of there.
Yeah, we want to exclude any of these. They're called stick tights.
Okay.
And we want to take them out of our bucket as we're picking up, because they'll just be moisture to add to mold possibilities later.
Okay. So speaking of picking up, we dropped a large amount onto the tarp to make it easy to pick those up, but you have tools also. There's a variety of different tools for collecting pecans if they just fall in the yard, right?
Yep, we've got this little picker-upper. I'm not sure what its name is, but it just has the wire bottom, and you go along and just pick up individual nuts. A lot easier on the tarp. They're right there available, but it works in the grass too. You can see it works over here just fine. And then whenever you get your little basket full, you just empty it into a 5-gallon bucket or whatever you're using and keep going.
Okay.
And that saves your knees, and you're not having to be bending or on your hands
Right.
and knees picking up nuts all afternoon.
And there's several different types of these small rollers. There's a couple that look like a slinky on a stick.
And you just roll them along. It looks kind of like a toy. Maybe you can get some kids to help you out with that if they think it looks fun. So
And
we've
you have
got
a bigger one.
a bigger version. This is it's called a bag-o-nut, and so it rolls along. It has little fingers, and it acts kind of like the commercial type of harvester, but it uses those little fingers to pick them up and then empty them into the basket. And then whenever you get ready to, you could maybe go to your tarp or somewhere, and then it just dumps out and empties, and then you can pick them up in one area.
And before you use something like this, you can actually use a leaf blower and clear the leaves out of the way
Right.
so we don't get as much debris as we just
Or
said.
you could use just a regular rake and rake them together, and then that way you don't have to go quite as, around as much. It'll just be in one localized area.
All right, once we've picked up all our nuts, we need to dry them so that we can store them later. So for drying, we need really good air circulation.
Right. At this point, when they come off the tree, they have a really high moisture content. Especially if we're knocking them out of the tree, they may have 15 or 20% moisture, so they can be kind of rubbery. And we want to dry them down to about 4 or 5% moisture. And the good way to know when you're at that level is you take a kernel and you just break it in half, and it snaps. And so you can actually hear the snap of the kernel. And so that tells you that it's at a good moisture level. This one needs just a little bit more drying and it'll be good. Some of these others that were taken out of the shuck, they're quite a bit wetter, and they just feel kind of rubbery at this point.
Okay.
So,
and we want to make sure that we get those dried. Is that about a 1 to 2 week process?
it depends on your moisture of the air outside. If it's raining or high humidity, it may take a little bit longer, but usually a week if you had a fan on them or hanging up somewhere, that's going to dry them out pretty well.
And once they're dry, we could store them in the freezer.
Yeah, you can get them cracked or you can store them in shell, either way. If you left them out at room temperature, they'll only be good for about maybe 3 to 6 months. In shell, they'll last a little bit longer, maybe 6 months. If they're shelled already, it may be 3 months, and they'll start to go rancid because of the high oil content. But if we store them in the refrigerator, they'll last a little bit longer. But if we store them in the deep freeze, they'll last for maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So
Excellent.
yeah.
All right.
So-
Well, thank you so much for
Sure.
showing us.
You're welcome.
Dick, for a larger caliper rootstock, we're going to use the bark grafting method, correct?
That's correct. Any tree that's about 1 inch up to about 4 inches in diameter would be ideal for bark graft. This particular tree was about somewhere between 1.5 and 2 inches, and this is about the preferred size you'd like to graft. And with one graft, you can convert this tree over to an improved variety.
All right, well, show us how you do that.
Alrighty, first we need to take the top out of the tree, and anytime you're cutting a tree, you have to be a little careful that you don't peel the bark down the tree. So we're going to back cut it about halfway, and once we get about halfway through, we're going to move to the other side and finish our cut. Especially on the trees that are 3 to 4 inches in diameter, we have to be careful because we can peel this bark down the trunk, and then your tree is not going to be suitable for grafting. Once we get the top cut off, we need to select a piece of wood, and this bark is a little thick, so we want to thin it down slightly, and we have to be careful not to go through too deep or go through the cambium, but just to make it where it's easier to get a good fit with our graft.
And if you look from the top, you can see the cambium is the little bit darker section of the wood.
Right. And we'd like to have a piece of wood that's about 6 inches in length, and we'll make our pattern cut about 2 inches long. And the smoother that we can get this cut, the more chances are that this graft will grow. So what we want is a good smooth surface here, and we're going to turn the graft over and make a little chisel cut on the back, and then we're going to rake a little bit on the sides, and you're going to expose a little bit more of the cambium, which is right here on the edge. And the most important part of this graft is to get a good tight fit on either side. We want to make a cut down about 1 inch on either side, and then we remove the graft and make a little expansion joint right in the middle. Then with the tip of our blade, we can pull the bark loose. I like to put my thumb against it and use the back of my knife to tap it down. And we want to stop with about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch of the exposed cut wood above the tree. Once we get to that point, I take the tip of the deal and cut off about the top 1/2 an inch of the bark.
And so that flap is going to help hold the piece in along with...
Then we'll use one nail. This little nail is a number 18 that's 3/4 of an inch long, and we'll attach it about 1/4 to 1/2 an inch below the top of the tree, and with a small hammer, so we don't beat up the wood, we'll drive the nail in until it's just flush with the wood. This supports the graft. The next step we are going to do is we're going to use a piece of aluminum foil, and we prefer to use the shiny side out, and we'll form this around the tree and around the top of the graft. This reflects the heat away from the graft and keeps it damp and keeps it cool until the graft can grow in. Then we use a standard fold top sandwich bag. We pinch the corner out of the bag, put it down over the graft, and we attach the top, secure the top with a rubber band, a small rubber band. These are number 19, and by being careful not to knock any of the buds off, we can tighten this up and keep it to where it seals the top of the graft. The next step is we want to use we use 1-inch masking tape, and we tape the bottom to hold the bottom of the bag secure to the tree. The next step that we're going to do is we're going to use what we call a bird perch that will help to protect from a bird coming in and lighting on the graft that could jar the graft loose from the tree. So we're going to tape this on, and it also makes a good place to anchor our new growth on our graft when it gets up 6, 8, or 10 inches tall, so that it doesn't blow out from a hard wind. The last step that we'll do on this graft is we use an amber shellac, and we paint the whole graft, buds and all. This helps to seal the moisture in the graft and keeps it from drying out. We should see the buds swelling within 10 days to 2 weeks, and within 3 weeks we can see little leaves starting to form on this graft. So it won't take long to know when you're going to have a successful graft.
And when do you remove the plastic and the foil?
Okay, normally we'll come back about the middle of July and we're going to have some buds break out up and down this trunk. We want to remove some of these, and we also want to make sure that none of the lower branches extend above the graft. So if we have a branch that's actually up taller than the graft, we want to remove those to where the main energy from the root system is feeding the graft itself. They can be choked out, and it can cause your failure of your graft if you've got a limb that extends much higher than the graft.
So it'll take about 2 to 3 years for that scion, the growth of that, to catch up to the trunk of our rootstock.
That's correct, and we want to take all the lower branches off of the tree within that 2 to 3 year period, and we can kind of expect nuts from this tree within 4 to 5 years.
Jackie, today we're going to talk about pecan weevil, and that's one of our major pests of pecans in Oklahoma.
It is, Kim, and if you've ever seen a little round hole about an 1/8 inch in diameter, that's from the pecan weevil. It's actually the larvae.
Okay.
They exit through that hole and they fall to the ground and they pupate in the soil.
Okay, and so we have a trap that helps capture those who've pupated, they're emerging and coming back up into the tree.
That's right. So they will pupate in the soil for 1 to 2 years, and when they emerge, the adults, they look for the silhouette of a tree. So they're attracted to the tree, crawl up the tree, and you can use this type of trap to intercept them. And if you use these traps, you can catch about 85% of the population.
And fortunately, that's a pretty easy thing for homeowners to do. We don't have to worry about spraying
That's
the
right.
canopy.
That's
and you
right.
have a trap behind you. Let's put
I
that
do.
up. Now, these are not available commercially, right?
Right.
You have to make this.
That's right.
And
So it's just some insect screening, and then a boll weevil trap, and then a little bit of wire so you can form it correctly.
okay.
So
and
it's
the
fairly
boll
easy to
weevil
make.
traps you can order
Online.
online. But the rest of the materials you might find at a hardware store.
right.
And you have instructions on how to build this.
I sure do. We have a fact sheet called Monitoring for the Pecan Weevil, where we go into detail on how to make these traps.
Okay, and we've put one up on the tree, but basically we need to surround the entire trunk, right?
That's right, Kim.
Okay, and so on this size tree, I think 2 traps will make it all the way around. but on a larger tree, we might need 3?
You may need 3.
Okay. How does this work?
So the adults will crawl in here and they get trapped in this little boll weevil trap. So to check the trap, you have to turn the cup and the insects will be in this area or in the cup.
Okay, and just kind of empty it out.
Yeah.
Use soapy water to kill them if
Yep.
they're still alive. Okay.
Yep.
What's the best timing for putting the traps up to monitor or to trap out the weevils?
You want to get the traps out, I would say, in mid-July. And we usually get the biggest emergence of pecan weevil in late August to September. They'll usually emerge after a large rainfall event.
Okay.
So,
And they're really easy to install. You could just use a staple gun to attach it to the tree, and it's not going to
That's
do
right.
any damage to the trunk.
right,
So.
right.
All right. Well, thank you, Jackie. I think this will
Yeah.
be a wonderful tool for homeowners who want to get more out of their pecans.
Definitely.
And really simple to utilize.
Really.
Thanks
it
so
is.
much.
Yeah. Thanks, Kim.
If the task of cracking all of your pecans by hand seems a little daunting, you could bring them to a facility to get cracked. Today we're visiting Hoffman Pecan Farm, and joining us is Mr. Dick Hoffman. Well, Mr. Hoffman, tell me a bit about the machinery that you utilize for cracking the pecans in the process.
Okay. We have 2 lines of cracking equipment. They'll crack any size pecan that you want to put in them, from the little natives to the big paper shells. Each machine will crack 500 pecans a minute, so most of the people that bring their pecans can wait on them and take them home with them and don't have to make the second trip. They use air pressure to crack the pecan, and with the speed that they're cracking them, we can process about 100 pounds of paper shells in about 10 minutes.
Okay. And so you feed all the pecans in to the hopper here?
Yes. When customers bring them in, we weigh the pecan and we charge 50 cents a pound for cracking and shelling.
Okay.
Once they're cracked, they go into the next step, which is an elevator that takes them into the pecan sheller. The drum sheller will break the nut meat apart from the shell, and then they fall down into this tray that's vibrating the pecans over to the next system, which is a vacuum part. The shells are lighter than the nut meat, so the shells are vacuumed into a tank out the side of a barn. Once they go through it, they're elevated on into the next step, which is our holding tank. And when we're processing our pecans, we can bag them and weigh them right here on the end of the line.
We have some on this line that are ready to bag up. Let's go
Okay.
ahead and show that process.
Right. Now these pecans will be about 90% shell-free, and we call them cracked and blown or cracked and shelled. Our machine will weigh them right here, and
We can pick out some of the bigger shells as they go through.
bigger shells, and if we get a pecan that has been damaged, we try to pull them out. And this particular variety is the Pawnee variety. It's one of the earlier ones to ripen, so that's one of the first ones to hit the market, and it's been a very popular pecan in Oklahoma.
Okay, so we're
Once
gonna...
we get the desired weight, we're going to stop this at 5 pounds.
All right.
So we always go just slightly over to make sure that we get a good measure.
And there'll be just a few ounces of shell in here, but primarily these nice pecan halves, maybe a few pieces, but they crack very nicely.
Yes, we get primarily about 90 to 95% whole halves out of our pecans through the cracking equipment, because they do with the air pressure and the cracking with impact instead of pressure. They don't smash the pecan or bust them up. Once we get them bagged, we bring them over to our table and tape the bag shut. And we put our label on it, and it's ready to go out the door.
And here's one that's been packaged and labeled and ready to go.
Yes, we have label with our address and our phone number and website and all on it. And so this 5 pounds of pecan sells for $7 a pound, which makes this bag cost $35. We bag them in about 5 or 6 different sizes. We have 3 pounds, 5 pounds, 6 pounds, 10, and 12.
And that, of course, is for the ones that you grow on the farm here.
Yes, and we have to purchase some because we sell a lot more pecans than we can grow, unfortunately. And especially with the drought, you know, it's been tough the last 4 years. And in fact, the crop in Oklahoma is down quite a bit this year, so pecans are a little hard to find.
But we're still one of the top producers nationwide.
Generally rank about at 5th in the nation.
Excellent.
On an average.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing the processing with us.
Okay. You're welcome.
Next week on the Best of Oklahoma Gardening, we are going to explore unusual edibles. We will plant some broccoli alternatives and harvest the spring rob and gailon. We'll take a look at some blue tomatoes, harvest radicchio, and also harvest some edamame, which Barbara Brown will then use in an amazing edamame hummus. Join us then for more TV You'll Grow to Love. For additional information, show notes, plant lists, recipes, and fact sheets, visit our website or contact your local Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service office. Segments from this episode, along with hundreds more from previous episodes, are available on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Oklahoma Gardening. Be sure to join our Facebook group for information on upcoming episodes and gardening events, photos, and discussions of gardening topics. Oklahoma Gardening is produced by the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University. The Botanic Garden at OSU is home to our studio gardens. This outdoor television studio is made possible with the help of our generous underwriters, TLC Garden Centers, Southwood Landscape and Nursery, and the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry. Additional support is provided by Pond Pro Shops, Greenleaf Nursery and the Garden Debut Plants, and the Oklahoma Horticultural Society.